When I was at school, I loved Latin. I loved the stories that you got to translate in Latin once you got past the caecilius est in horto, caecilius in horto est. Once you got past all that at GCSE, you got to translate the most fantastic stories, stories that had withstood thousands of years and had passed the test of time. You got to learn about sex and death and love and tragedy. I translated parts of the Aeneid where Dido, this strong, fierce woman, queen of her land, had suffered the loss of her husband and then tragically fell in love with this hero Aeneas, but only because the gods had enchanted her to fall in love with him. Then had a one-night stand, thought that they were married, and so when Aeneas finally left, she threw herself off a cliff and died. But then at least she was able to meet her husband again in the underworld. Or I learned about Pliny the Elder and how during the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, everyone was running around and they all had to clutch pillows to their heads to stop the falling rocks from hitting them. And him, in his last breaths, as he was dying, decided to just sit down on a rock and just be calm and watch the volcanic eruption happen in front of him as he died quietly. And the stories are just incredible. But I didn't just love Latin for the stories. That's why I enjoyed it at the time when I was doing my GCSEs, and I wish I'd done it to A-level. But now I still love Latin, and I don't have the ability to translate those stories anymore. I've lost a lot of my Latin knowledge. But I'm still reminded that I love Latin whenever I come across words that I don't know but I'm able to piece together from my little bits of knowledge. So for example, if there's even the fly that I'm working on at the moment, Drosophila melanogaster, phila means love, and gaster is stomach, and melano is dark, and so I only had to look up drossos, which means Jew, to find out that my flies are black-bellied, Jew-loving animals. And Latin gave me such a better appreciation of the English language, and that's why I still love it, because Latin helped me understand English in a way that English lessons never could. I would never have known about the gerundive had it not been for my Latin, or God, the perfect participle passive, I remember, and just deconstructing the language in that way was wonderful. And that's why I love maths. Maths has fantastic stories in it, and I went to a talk by Marcus de Sotoy last night, which reminded me of this book called The Number Devil, which if you haven't read it, you really should. I think I first read it when I was about 6 or 7, and it's an incredible book in that I enjoyed it then, and if I had it with me here, I would read it again now and would enjoy it just as much. The stories are phenomenal. It's about a boy who hates maths and hates his maths homework, and in his dreams he's visited by this devil of numbers, the Number Devil, and the Number Devil tells him about the stories involved in maths and in numbers, looking at things like higher dimensional shapes that shouldn't be able to exist in this world, looking at factorials and Fibonacci numbers, and actually to this day I still, honestly at 21, still see 2 factorial and read it as 2 vroom as a result of this book, because it changes the words that it uses for mathematical operators. And I mean, there are some beautiful stories like e to the I pi minus 1 equals 0, which apparently, according to some slightly dodgy study, mathematicians appreciate in the same way that artists or other people would appreciate beauty in art in a more conventional sense. And the stories were great, and I did further maths A-level, and for a short time I was actually considering doing maths at university, which I probably would have done had I not loved biology even more. But now I've lost a lot of my maths ability, which really frustrates me, but it means I'm no longer able to appreciate the stories so much. And there's a lot of maths that I feel that I just don't have the knowledge to understand. But I still love maths, and I love maths because it helps me understand the world. Like Latin helps me understand English, maths helps me understand nature. As a biologist, we have the most difficult job, I think, of all the sciences, of trying to pinpoint what's going on in an unimaginably complex world. And yet there's maths that cuts through all of it. In my field, in evolution, we have inclusive fitness theory. We have RB minus C greater than 0, which explains so much behaviour, or just tweak the assumptions a little bit, and then we can perfectly describe why wasps that live inside figs that lay all their eggs, and the eggs go on to mate with each other, the brothers and sisters inside a fig, why that should be a female skewed sex ratio rather than a male skewed one, or a 50-50 sex ratio like we see elsewhere. And we can predict it with pretty much 90% predictive power, R squared of 0.9. It is incredible. And whilst there are things like statistics, which if maths is a tool, statistics I would say is a sledgehammer, because it's not the most delicate of ways of using maths, but it gets the job done. But when you can describe the immense complexity of the natural world in simple, elegant equations with as few variables as possible, then that is just beautiful, and that's why I love maths.